That's a good idea. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Toltec Wisdom for Modern Leaders. This is basically something that's been my passion for a long time, is following these some of these Toltec traditions, and I just wanted to share it a little bit today. I have any of you read this amazing book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz? Just pop a yes into the chat box if you've had the opportunity to read this book. Anyone? No? Ooh, interesting. Okay, awesome. Wow. Well, that's basically what today is about. How, my personal journey started by reading these books about this ancient Toltec wisdom, and then how it basically helped me on my growth and journey many, many years ago. And so this is just a little bit of a passion project. Just want to talk about this tonight. So thanks for being here with us, guys. And as always, if this is your first time joining, I do encourage participation and questions. I'm going to be asking some questions, and I would love for you to drop into the chat box if you have any answers to those questions. And if you have your own questions, then please pop those into the chat box as well. And let's have some fun. As always, we'll be super surprised how quickly this hour goes. So without further ado, let us jump in. So Toltec Wisdom for Modern Leaders. If this is your first time joining us, check out our YouTube channel. I'll send you a link to that later. We've got about 30 or so webinars uploaded there. And also our Facebook group called 60-Second Leadership, where we share leadership tips and tools and techniques in around a minute or so. I'll send you the link for that later as well. Pardon me. Toltec Wisdom. So interestingly, as I learned about Toltec and the wisdoms and all the ancient kind of learnings first, and then maybe 10 years ago, I learned about NLP. And then I picked up another book about the Toltec again. And as I reread it again with fresh eyes, I was able to see that what the Toltecs are sharing and what NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, there was a lot of overlap. There were a lot of similarities. So I'll be sharing a little bit about that. And then some of the best tools for emotional intelligence. So these four agreements that we're going to be learning today, literally millions and millions of people around the world have read this book, and it's a very, very practical, easy way to improve our emotional intelligence. In other words, to be able to navigate life without being so reactive to things that are going on in our environment. And then I've got another little bonus tool that I want to share with you today too, as you're beginning to implement some of these Toltec tips and these four agreements. Another kind of tool that you can combine together with that to help you with emotional intelligence. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. The second agreement, don't take anything personally. The third agreement, don't make assumptions. And the fourth agreement, always do your best, right? And how you can apply this into your life and into your leadership role. So I have not taught Toltec anywhere before, except anyone who knows me well knows that I love this stuff. But, leadership programs, coaching programs, these are just some of the clients that we've been working with here at Coachology. And I don't know, maybe one day I'd like to teach a public Toltec course, but let's start with our 1 hour webinar today, shall we? So back when I was living in Australia, I was working in the manufacturing industry. And basically I was a production manager at a manufacturing pharmaceutical company. And as a production manager, I was leading a team of about 20 people. And basically we were packing up things in boxes and sending them out the door. And then a friend gave me this book. And I can honestly say that this book was my very first mind-blowing experience in terms of where my personal development journey started. You see, when I was working in the manufacturing industry, I was very tightly wound up in my own comfort zone. And my life was very predictable, very boring. I was back into racing cars back in those days. So I had like a hot rod with the engine sticking out the bonnet and 500 horsepower and all that stuff. So I would, I'd pack the boxes through the weeks. I would drink beer on the weekends, and I would tinker on my car and go cruising with the boys. And that cycle just repeated and repeated and repeated. So I was tightly wound up in my comfort zone. I knew nothing about coaching, nothing about like real leadership principles, nothing about spirituality or anything. I was really, really kind of closed-minded to the whole world. Then I read this book, Traveling with Power by Ken Eaglefeather, which basically was the introduction for me into this whole concept of this Toltec wisdom. And I can honestly say it blew my mind. And some of the distinctions that I remember, now this might sound strange to some of you, but I'm okay to open up about it. In this book, they mentioned the concept of, do you know that you have the ability to observe your own thoughts, right? So in neuroscience, we call that metacognition. So you having your thoughts, but then there's a sort of detached part of you that kind of is listening to those thoughts that you're having on a moment-to-moment basis. Now, until that time, I must have been totally unconscious and totally unaware. Like, I knew I was thinking, but I didn't know I could observe my thinking, and, I was already, 20, 25 or something like that. And so when I got this concept of, wow, I can observe my thoughts, and then it was like suddenly I could hear this little voice, and it was like, whoa. So I'd just been totally unconscious about it until that point. And so, all of the other concepts that I read in this book began the journey for me. So a little sharing about the Toltecs. Thousands of years in southern Mexico, the Toltecs were known as women and men of knowledge. They were scientists and artists who explored and preserved spiritual knowledge. So then this gentleman came along by the name of Don Miguel Ruiz. He is the author of the 4 Agreements. And basically what he did was took some of those ancient knowledge and wisdom, similar into that first book that I read, but explained it in a very, very simple way. And so, for example, this beautiful little book here, it's about 130 pages worth of reading. It's a really easy read. And most of all, it's practical, and it makes common sense on these processes, these techniques that we can apply into our life. So Don Miguel says, when you love yourself unconditionally, you justify and explain the whole world through the eyes of love. So what does he mean by that is, whatever belief systems we have about ourselves, if we feel that we are not worthy, if we feel that we are not good enough, if we feel that we're not intelligent, or any of those kinds of limiting beliefs, then those belief systems are like a filter or a lens on how we perceive the world around us. So, a classic example is like, when you're feeling a real emotion of anger, and the saying goes, you see red everywhere. Well, that anger, that emotion is like a lens, a red colored lens. And so everything you see around you is like angry. And so the opposite of that is also true. So when you love yourself unconditionally, which is really about full acceptance of wherever you are on your journey in life at this moment in time, when you love yourself unconditionally, then you are looking through the eyes of love. You remember when you first met your husband and wife and you were starting to date, and then, you were just like in love, and it was like, oh, you kind of had that little feeling, oh, and then everything, the whole world looked beautiful, right? So we've all had this experience before. So what if we could, overcome these limiting beliefs and install some of these empowering beliefs to help us see the world differently? And that's kind of what these 4 agreements are. They're like an empowering belief system, that if you were to install these empowering beliefs, well, you'll see the world in a very empowering way. So let's take a look at them one by one. The 4 agreements. Number 1, be impeccable with your word. So the word impeccable means of the highest standards, right? So what this is really saying is to basically speak with integrity. What does that mean? It means do not lie. It means, do not cheat. It means tell the truth, tell your truth by speaking with integrity. B is say only what you mean. So we don't distort the truth. We don't tell, lies. And we say what we mean, because our word actually creates our reality. So follow me here. The thoughts that we have moment to moment lead to the decisions that we make, and those decisions that we make lead to the actions that we take. Now, it's safe to say that the actions that we do in the world around us, whether it's applying for a new job, whether it's, going out on a date with a man or a woman that then leads to something else, whatever action we do is actually creating our environment moment to moment. And in those actions that we're taking, a lot of the time, those actions include some form of communication. Right? So for example, when you're at a job interview, the way that you communicate with the person who's potentially going to hire you is going to be dependent a lot on the quality of your communication, on your ability to be able to answer their questions and to be able to, influence them to hire you for that job. So we want to avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others, right? So in other words, we don't want to put ourselves down by using the word to speak against ourselves. Things like, oh, Luke, you're so stupid, or, oh, Luke, you never get it right, or, oh, Luke, when are you going to learn? All that kind of negative self-talk, right, which again starts with thinking to then be, expressing those words out loud, that is going to program your subconscious mind. So 5% of the day, we are consciously aware. 95% of the day, we're running on our subconscious habits and programs and belief systems. So subconscious means simply below our awareness. So it's outside of our awareness. Now, when you speak the truth, and when you say that you're going to do something and then you do it, the subconscious mind is always listening. It's always listening. It's just sitting there in the background, and it doesn't know right or wrong or good or bad or past or future. It only knows right now. So what happens is when you do not keep your agreements or you do not keep your promises, either to yourself or to other people, the subconscious mind is always listening. And so what happens if you consistently break your promises or break your agreements that you have with people, then what you're really doing is you're breaking the rapport with your subconscious mind, because you say you're going to do something, but then you don't do it. The subconscious mind is like a 4-year-old child. So it's like, let's go and get some ice cream. And the subconscious mind goes, yeah, let's get some ice cream. But then you don't get the ice cream. And then so the subconscious mind is, and then over time, if you keep doing that repeatedly, you'll break the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious mind. In other words, the subconscious mind won't trust you anymore, right? So this is in the context with the promises that you keep to yourself. Obviously, if you make promises with other people and you break those promises, that's going to damage the relationship with them, but also it's going to damage the relationship with your subconscious mind. It just can't trust you anymore. And so I learned about this technique that I'd like to share with you now back in one of the first personal development seminars I attended 20 years ago. You see, I read that book and I was so inspired. I was like, clearly I'd been living in my comfort zone. Clearly there was so much more out there that I did not know that I wanted to know now. So I enrolled in a seminar. It was called the Experience. So it was a very experiential learning. Some of it based on this, actually, on the Toltec knowledge, and some of it based on NLP as well. And the facilitator was talking about how to improve the relationship between your conscious and your subconscious mind. And the exercise was very, very simple. The exercise is you make a promise with yourself, you make an agreement that you will do a specific task every day. And that's it. And then you just need to make sure that you do that task every day. So I started my agreement that I made with myself, the promise that I made with myself was that I would do 5 push-ups per day. Now, back then I couldn't do any push-ups. I was just like skinny like a pencil and really no muscles anywhere. And so I started with 5 push-ups, and then I built that up to be doing 20 push-ups. So my final agreement was I do 20 push-ups every day. Then I left Australia to go backpacking around the world for 1 year, but I kept this one promise to myself that every day, no matter what, I would do my 20 push-ups. Now, as I was traveling around the world for a year, I was staying in hostels, with 20 people in the room, double bunk beds, could hardly move between. I was working on a construction site. I'd be sleeping on friends' sofas or whatever as I was traveling around. Yet every single day, I kept my word to myself. I was impeccable with my word that I would do those 20 push-ups. Now, a magical thing happens, guys, when you keep your promises to yourself, is what you do is you repair the relationship between your conscious and your subconscious mind. Right? Now, you've probably heard of like the law of attraction and things like that. Well, guess what? That doesn't work if your conscious and your subconscious, if they're not working together, then forget about the law of attraction. So in essence, what this exercise was an exercise in being impeccable with my word. I remember at one point I was living in Ireland, and I was in a beautiful town on the west coast of Ireland called Galway. And I rented a car with some friends and we drove up to Northern Ireland. There's this beautiful place called the Giant's Causeway, and we did the touristy thing for the day. And then we were driving back. It was about 11:45 at night, and I was driving and I went, oh, I hadn't done my push-ups yet. And I thought, oh, I've got to do my push-ups. So I pulled over to the side of the road. I put the car in park and I jumped out. My friend says, what are you doing? I said, never mind. And I went in front of the car with the headlights on, almost midnight, and I did my 20 push-ups on the side of the road because it was so important to me that I was impeccable with my word. I wanted to repair the damage that I'd been done by being so unconscious for all of those years. And you know what? The magic just started to happen, guys. The magic in my life over that 1 year when I was backpacking, I'm talking about synchronicities. I'm talking about serendipities of meeting this person in this place or this book in this bookshop, or just cool, magical stuff that just, defies logic. And the way that I've been thinking about it recently, when you make a promise that you're going to do something, the wheels of the universe begin to get into motion. Now, I don't pretend to know the mechanics of how and why synchronicities work, or those serendipities of these, these chance meetings with someone that just opens a door to a new chapter of your life. But I do think that the more that you are impeccable with your word, we're talking here, guys, about your intention, right? That you're intending to do something and then you do what you say you're going to do. It puts out a frequency, it puts out some vibe into the universe, and the universe somehow, in its infinite wisdom, arranges for you to meet that person at that moment in time that's going to lead to some kind of evolution of yourself personally. Does this make sense, guys? Yeah? So the other part here on point C is not to gossip about others. Because the subconscious mind, again, it's always listening. And if you start gossiping, or you're lying to this person or you're lying to that person, and it might not be some kind of, huge deliberate lie, but when you don't tell the truth, and if you've told this person this story and that person another story and that person a different story again, then you've got to try to remember all of these false stories that you've been talking around around the town. So what does that mean is you are not whole, you're not complete. You have these kind of separate almost personalities of this person's, it consumes so much energy. And then of course, how does the universe know what to give you, right? If we think abundance and meeting those people and having those opportunities, there's no alignment, right? And then finally, use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. So as you have those intentions through the eyes of truth and love, then you're going to experience and see and attract more of those kinds of people as well. As you become impeccable with your word, then like attracts like, so you're going to begin to attract the kind of people that you want to spend time with in your life. Does this make sense, guys? Be impeccable with your word, yeah? Any questions on this? Be impeccable with your word. I mean, they're pretty simple, huh? Like it's simply profound in the way that these work, right? So be impeccable with your word is number one. Now, how does this link to NLP? Well, in NLP, we have SMART goal setting. And if you guys have joined my webinars before, which I can see some of you have, I'm seeing some familiar faces. You know, we talk about setting a SMART goal and being very, very specific about that SMART goal. And then when you say that SMART goal out loud, that begins to attract that goal into your experience of life. So SMART goal setting is just being being impeccable, being specifically clear about what you want to attract into your life. We also in NLP talk about cause and effect. So if we live our life at cause, right, imagine you are the writer, the producer, the lead actor, and the director in your movie called life. So in other words, you are the creator of your life. Well, if you're the creator, we know now that the spoken word helps to create your reality. So if you're at cause, you want to be more conscious of the language that you use, right? To speak with intention and integrity and impeccability, well, you're going to create more of what you want, right? If we live our life at effect, it's more like we're a victim, we're not in control, life happens to me and it's not fair and so on. Creating empowering beliefs. So what Don Miguel says here is in point C, when you use the word to speak against yourself, well, negative thoughts, right? A repetition of negative thoughts creates limiting belief, and those limiting beliefs hold you back. The I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not intelligent, and all of those other things, that's what's going to hold you back. So when you are impeccable with your word, when you speak in the direction of truth and love, then you love yourself, you honor yourself, you respect yourself, and you respect other people on the journey. And as you think those positive thoughts through the eyes of truth and love, then of course the language that you use will be more positive and more empowering. The continued repetition of those positive words and thoughts are going to create empowering beliefs. And that's going to help you to attract even more of what you want into your life and increase the quality of your life. And then finally, creating greater wholeness. You see, when you speak your truth, and by the way, the truth is the truth. It sometimes is ugly, but it's still the truth, and that's okay. So good, bad, or ugly, if you can be impeccable and share your truth, then that's going to create greater wholeness, right? You won't have this kind of separation or this kind of like false identity thing going on. You are congruent, you have integrity, and you speak your truth, right? That's the best thing you can do for yourself. Alrighty, was there a question in the chat there? Impeccable include qualitative or quantitative or both? Impeccable seems more emotional. How do we mix both in SMART? Wow, great question, Dr. Faz. So, well, the word impeccable again means of the highest standard, right? So you want to do the best you can to speak your truth, you know, most of the time. And mixing that in with SMART goal Well, with your SMART goal, it's about getting crystal clear on your goal, right? So having your goal set as a high standard, right? So be impeccable with the standards on how you create your goal statement, your SMART goal statement. So, you know, a lot of goal statements that people want to achieve, they're really long and they're really complicated and they're not quite clear and they're maybe not measurable and they're kind of future tense. When I talk about being impeccable with your word and linking it to a SMART goal, it is you say what you want and you get very, very clear and you make it as simple as possible. You make it present tense. You have a by when date that you want to achieve it. And that is being impeccable with your SMART goal creation, like stating very, very clearly what it is that you want to achieve. Yep. Awesome. So any other questions or comments, pop them into the chat box, guys. I'll be happy to go through that a little more. So number 2, wow, this one is huge. Number 2, don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. Nothing others do is because of you. So according to the Toltecs and Don Miguel, we are living our own personal dream. He basically says we're in this kind of waking dream state where, just like in a dream, if you can become conscious inside of your dream and you can fly and you can do all these, you know, weird and wonderful and cool things, well, our waking life is kind of like a dream in that we are creating our reality moment by moment. Now, I'm creating my reality and you're creating your reality. Now, it just so happens that sometimes our realities overlap. Now, we know that everyone perceives the world differently. There are no two people in the world that think exactly the same way or that perceive exactly the same way. And of every person that you have ever met, they have all perceived you differently based on their own program, based on their own filter. Are they looking at the world through eyes of love, or are they looking through the eyes of hate or jealousy or anger or something else? We don't know is the short answer. But think about it. Here you are. The way that your mother perceives you is clearly very different to how your work colleague perceives you, or how your brother or sister might perceive you, or how your husband and wife might perceive you. So even though you are you, every other person has a different version of you in their mind. Now, they don't know the real you. Only you know the real you. So each different person has a different version of you inside of their head. Now, we don't know what that is. And in fact, it's not really our business to know what it is. You know, what other people think of you is really none of your business. Now, why is this important, guys? Is because what others say and do is a projection of their own reality and their own dream. For example, let's say someone is really good at the emotion of anger, right? And they're just like an angry person. They're kind of like, kind of growling most of the day. Well, chances are when that person engages with you, they're going to speak to you in an angry tone of voice. They're going to maybe be angry at you. They might even shout at you and they might, you know, why are you so stupid? And they'll say these negative things. Well, now we know it's not about you. It's about their program, their overreaction, their anger, their frustration, whatever it is, that, if nothing else, that is a sign of their own lack of emotional intelligence. So when people are shouting at you and they're saying this, we don't need to take it personally because it's their program, it's their stuff, and it's their projection onto us, right? So we don't need to own it because it's not ours, it's theirs. So when we get this, guys, that whenever someone's acting out to you, they're kind of up in your face and they're doing this and they're doing that, It's not our stuff. Now, there may be times where you did make a mistake or something like that. So if you did make a mistake, even if they're yelling at you, you still don't need to take it personally. What can you do? Well, you clean it up as best you can. You say, I acknowledge I made a mistake. I apologize for that. That was not my intention. What can I do to fix it? Right? So you take ownership. You be impeccable with your word. You say, yep, I messed up and I'm sorry. How can I fix it? Right? But you do not have to tolerate their anger and their frustration and any negative words that they throw towards you. It's not yours to own. It's their stuff. It's their program. Let them own it. And in fact, when we get that, when you really get it at a deep level, we can actually develop more empathy for that person, because we can begin to imagine what their program must be like, that how it must be to live in their body with all of that anger or all of that sadness or all of that frustration, right? So when you are immune to the options and the actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering, right? You won't be the victim of needless suffering. Yeah, so whenever anyone gets up in my face now, I listen, because I know I don't have to take it personally. I know it is their projection. It's their stuff that they're throwing against me. Now, what happens, guys, is if you have someone like that in your life and you're able to not take it personally, well, what'll happen is, because it won't affect you anymore. It'll just be like water off a duck's back. And you'll be like, huh. Now, if they're some kind of like narcissist, or they like to push your buttons, or they're toxic and they can't push your buttons anymore because you don't take it personally, they're going to move their attention to someone else. And that's a win for you, because you don't want or deserve people like that in your life. So by not taking things personally, you're retaining your own personal power, right? Because what happens to most of us when someone is up in our face, we'll often react, right? But we don't have to, because it's not our drama. It is their drama. Now, how does this link to some of the NLP modules? Again, to be at cause, right? So I'm the creator of my dream, right? I'm the creator of my experience. You are the creator of your experience. And I don't like that story. I'm not going to take that story on board. That is not me. Here are my boundaries. Here is the line in the sand. This is your stuff. This is my stuff. I'm happy with my stuff. And then that's by what we call by being at cause. Now, you might need to remove toxic people, right? And you can learn to just not take it personally. That's good. How do you evolve that even more? Is you just remove them from your life. Or if they're a family, maybe not so easy to fully remove them. What do? You minimize your contact with them. And then again, you don't take it personally. When the mother-in-law is like, oh, why did you wear that? Oh my God, you look so old, or whatever. You don't need to take it personally. You can smile. You can say thank you. I got it for 100 baht. It's a special at the market. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And removing limiting beliefs. Now, why is this important, guys? Our belief systems were created between the ages of when we're born and 7 years old. As a child, we were just a sponge, and we absorbed all of the belief systems and the values and basically everything from our environment. So as a child, we take everything personally. So what do I mean by that is, if you growing up as a child, a mother or father or caregiver continually said things like, you're so stupid, you'll never amount to anything, you're a dummy or whatever, and they kept saying that, as a child, you do take it personally. Number one, because you haven't read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. But secondly, you're a child. You don't know any different. You don't know right or wrong, good or bad. So you just take it as the truth. You take it as a fact, and you create that limiting belief. I am not good enough. I am not worthy. I am stupid. But now you can realize that no, it's not true. Whatever they are saying, it's their drama, it's their story. I don't need to take it. So therefore, it cannot impact you, right? You will be immune to those BS stories that they're trying to convince you that you are this or you are that, right? So there's a way to kind of clean up the past to remove all of those limiting beliefs that we accepted as fact as we were children. And there's another empowering belief that we talk about in NLP, which states, I'm in charge of my mind and therefore my results, and you are in charge of your mind and therefore your results. So in other words, we are creating our own dream. I am the creator of my reality. You are the creator of yours, right? And if I don't like your reality, well, guess what? I don't have to accept it because I'm not going to take it personally. Now, the biggest challenge you'll have with this, guys, are people that are very, very close to you, right? Because, you know, there's a history there, there's emotional connection. And, you know, when your husband or wife says something, you know, in the middle of an argument and it's like, oh, it feels like they've ripped out your heart, maybe not so easy. And again, if you practice this with enough repetition, you're able to, even in the middle of those heated arguments, you still don't need to take it personally. It just goes to show more about their lack of emotional control. Yeah. Any questions on don't take anything personally? Or if you've had an experience, as we're talking about this, where you've, you know, kind of applied this into your life with some success, then please share it into the chat or unmute yourself and tell me a little story. I would love to hear it. Number 3, don't make assumptions. So find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. So again, wow, I mean, they're so simple and they're so profound. Now, as a leadership coach and a leadership trainer, and I train people how to become a professional coach, you know, one of the rules that we have in coaching is we just don't make assumptions, right? And so an assumption is kind of like a mind read where we think we know what the other person is thinking. Now, of course, this creates so much drama in our life, and this is where miscommunication happens, because I think that you think the same way that I think. And so in that sense, we make all of these assumptions multiple times a day where we walk around the world thinking that everyone thinks the same as we do, that they will just get it if I give an instruction or a piece of information because it's crystal clear in here. But guess what? It's not crystal clear to the person that you're communicating with. So point A here is divided into 2 parts. Find the courage to ask questions. So if you're not sure about something, whether it's your husband or your wife, or you've got some instruction from your boss or someone in the project or whatever, find the courage to ask clarification questions to create clarity, right? This whole myth about, oh, if I ask questions, it'll make me look stupid. That is not true. It is a lie. It is a myth. So find the courage, and this comes with practice, that if you don't understand something, you simply ask some clarification questions to get clear, to remove the assumptions. I do it like 50 times a day, mostly with my wife, who's not here, so I can say that. But I'm talking, you know, I do it with my coaching clients. I do it with, you know, the organizations that I'm working with when I'm working on a project, you know, the CEOs and the MDs of these companies. If I'm not clear, I'm going to ask a question, because otherwise, if I make an assumption, I'm going to most likely be wrong. And then that's going to cause problem and dramas. Now, the second part here is to find the courage to express what you really want. So again, if we don't express what we really, really want clearly, if we make an assumption that the other person knows what we want, well, that's an assumption, and chances are they won't get it right. Then they deliver on that project, that task, that commitment, whatever you'd kind of agreed, and then you get disappointed because they didn't deliver it to your expectations. Why? Because you didn't express it clearly. You made an assumption that they knew what you wanted without you fully expressing yourself, which can take a little bit of courage sometimes, right? You know, again, in many different areas of your life, within your relationships, at work, and so on, you can absolutely find that courage to ask questions, to get clear, and to express yourself fully so the other person understands. B, communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. Right? So, you know, however good you are at communication, improve it even more by, you know, asking the questions, communicating clearly, and expressing yourself, voicing it out, setting a boundary, drawing a line in the sand, sharing what is not acceptable behavior in your relationships with the people that you care about, right? Because if you do not express it, then how do they know? How can they know what's going on in your mind unless you communicate it clearly? Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Sue, who says, when our triggers act up, number 2 is really helpful. Yes, it is. And C here, with just this one agreement, guys, you can completely transform your life. Now, this agreement here, it's a habit for me now. I have installed this as a habit. And you know what I found? To make assumptions, we think it's kind of easier somehow, but it actually consumes more energy, especially when those assumptions lead to misunderstanding, sadness, and drama. So I just don't make assumptions anymore. Does it drive my wife crazy sometimes? Yeah, because I'm going to ask more questions to get more deep. I don't want to try to fill in the blanks. That consumes energy, and I'm still most likely to get it wrong. So I will say, what do you mean by that? Where exactly are we going to meet? What time specifically are we going to meet? And because I won't assume anything. Yeah. And it just, I don't know, it gives me this sense of freedom because I don't have to mentally try and fill in the gaps of that missing information. Does that make sense, guys? Cool. If you have any questions, pop them into the chat box, please. Oh, that's a nice comment. Let me read that one. Okay. When I first moved to Thailand, to the Thailand factory from the UK, I got a lesson in my very first meeting. As the PM, I led the meeting and asked for some work to be completed for the meeting the next day. The next day came and the team looked blank at me. I then realized they hadn't understood what I wanted. I now ask the team to tell me what they will deliver the next day. This way I know that they understand what I want. Perfect. Exactly. Right. Especially when we're talking about different culture and different language and we're the new kid on the block. We've just joined an organization. Guys, please let go of that belief that if I speak up or if I ask questions or if I don't clarify and verify, it makes me look stupid. The opposite is true. They'll actually have more respect for you because you're clarifying and verifying. Great. Thanks for the share. I appreciate that. So in NLP, we have a concept called mind reading, which is generally bad. So mind reading, not like, you know, a mystic, like, ooh, I know what you're thinking. Now, mind reading simply means making assumptions. That's the language they use in NLP. We also have a process called meta-model questioning. So meta-model questioning, most coaches use it all of the time. A good coach will keep asking questions and simply ask questions, get drilled down and get really, really specific, you know, what, who, when, and where, and those kind of types of questions. So when you use meta-model questioning, it destroys any assumptions or generalizations. Coaching questions, as I just mentioned, and clarify, verify. So clarify, verify is just another term for active listening, where you repeat back your understanding to ensure that you have not made any assumptions, right? So you could say something, may I clarify and verify, please? Or if I understand correctly, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, there's only two magical things that happen. Either they go, yes, yes, that's what I mean. Or they say, what I meant to say was blah, 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 blah. And then they'll fill in more of those gaps, giving you more information to reduce misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. And you can do it the other way as well. If you're the boss and you're giving an instruction, then you could say, would you mind to repeat back your understanding? As we had in the comment just there, you asked them to share back what do they need to prepare or deliver for the next meeting. Good-o. And number 4, always do your best. Now, obviously, your best is going to change moment to moment, guys. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It'll be different when you're healthy versus when you're sick. It'll be different on this day than it is on that day. And what you want to do is always just do the best that you can. And why is this important? Well, because under any circumstance, if you simply do your best, you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret, right? So, and regret is a big one. You know, we live with regret so many times in our life. It's soul crushing. It's sad. It's, you know, and so how do you overcome regret? Well, the preventative maintenance to avoid regret is to simply do your best, right? So for example, many years ago, I was working at another coach and training company. My business partner, he was the main facilitator. He was the main trainer. And we were delivering an NLP training. I think we were on day 3 of the training. And he calls me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and he says, Luke, I'm sick. I can't come in today. I'll try and come in at 12 o'clock. And I said, oh, dude, let's call him Bob. I said, Bob, you sound like you're going to die. I said, listen, why don't you have the whole day off, go and get some medicine, see the doctor, you do whatever you're going to do. Because you know what? I'm going to do my best. I can't do any more than my best. If I could do more than my best, I would do my best. And I'm going to do my best. Don't worry about it. So again, because I have this one as part of my belief systems, surprisingly, and I'd never taught that content before, the content that we're sharing on day 3, I'd never taught before. And I thought it was really strange. I didn't get anxious. I wasn't worried. I thought, okay, well, I better get on. And so I got up and I showered and I went into the hotel. I reviewed the notes. Everyone arrived to the training. We had about 30 people in the room. And I said, good morning, everyone. I'll be your facilitator today. Bob is sick. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to have some fun today. And I am going to do my best because I couldn't do it any better than my best. Does this make sense, guys? Right? So, gosh, and we had so much fun on that day. So this one belief system removed my stress and anxiety and worry and concern. It was gone because you can't do any better than your best. Now, now on a slightly different tone, my wife's father, sadly passed away about 3 months ago. And he was on life support and we needed to make these really, really tough decisions. And as we went through making the decisions, we did our best. We spoke to each other. We included all of the family in the decision-making process. We explored all different avenues. What if we did this? What if we did that? And we got it to a point where we realized we couldn't, there was nothing more to explore in terms of gathering data. We just needed to make a decision. And so we made the decision and we did what we did. And then, her father sadly passed away. And, but afterwards, the only thing that was left was to rejoice his life, to be happy. And we didn't have any regret because we know in that situation, we absolutely did our best to ensure that his passing was peaceful. Excuse me. So anyway, in NLP, we have a NLP presupposition, which is basically an empowering belief, similar kind of concept in that, we have these belief statements that if you install these belief statements, they will empower your life. And in NLP, it's very similar. We say people do the best they can with the resources that they have. If they could do better, they would do better. So again, if you continue to do your best moment to moment, knowing that it's going to change depending on your energy level and what's going on in life, you know, one thing that I ask myself, pardon me, is when I'm doing something, I can ask myself, is this my best? And if the answer is yes, then I can be happy with it. But if I get that little nagging feeling that, come on, Luke, you can do a little bit better, then I will do a little bit better, right? So this is how I kind of check in with myself. Am I doing my best at this moment? Yeah. Solution and results focused. So when, you know, in NLP, we talk about SMART goals, we talk about having a can-do, positive attitude, mindset, a solution and results focus. Well, if you're doing your best, then you're kind of focusing on those results and achieving what you want. And of course, in creating empowering habits. Yeah. So there they are all together, guys. If you wanted to take a screenshot of that or a photo of that, again, I thoroughly recommend reading this book. There's so much, it's so easy to read, and they obviously expand with a lot more stories and examples of how you can apply each of these into your life. Now, so I read that first book, Traveling with Power. Then I read this. I traveled the world. I arrived to Thailand. I worked 10 years in hospitality. Didn't do much with my personal development while the 10 years I was working in hospitality. Started to get the itch for it again. Moved up here to Bangkok. Started work as a professional coach and trainer, which was about 10 years ago now. About 3 years ago, as we went back to Australia to visit my family, we found this book at one of those bookshops at the airport. So of course I picked it up. It was on sale. It was only $20. Quite a big book. And then I reread this. I hadn't touched any of the Toltec stuff for more than 10 years. And as I read this book, you know, I'd already been certified as an NLP trainer. I read this book and I said, this Toltec stuff, I said, it's ancient NLP. It's like NLP from 1,000 years ago. So as we've already talked about already, the Toltecs talk about these assumptions. In NLP, we call it a mind read. Toltec says always do your best. In NLP, people do the best they can with the resources they have. Toltec, they have this term called domestication. So we've domesticated cattle. We've domesticated cats and dogs. And so what he says, what the Toltecs say, that as children, we are domesticated. We're kind of, you know, brought up to have the beliefs and the values and the attitudes of the people that we grow up with. So he calls that domestication. In NLP, we simply call it programming, right? The program that you have is based on the environment in which you grew up. And of course, as a child, you have no conscious control over that. You're just a sponge. So you kind of inherit that program from your parents through the actions and behaviors and communication that they do on a day-to-day basis. In Toltec, they have this word called the parasite. In NLP, we call that negative thinking, which is pretty self-explanatory. In Toltec, they have this concept called personal importance, right? And that's actually, that is going to prevent you from spiritual growth and enlightenment, because we think we know it all. And of course, we know that today as ego. And in the Toltec, there is a specific tool or technique that you can use where you go back into your life and you remember all of the negative events that happened to you, and you kind of look at it through the eyes of an adult and thereby transforming and releasing those negative emotions. Well, in modern day coaching world, we have the concept called timeline therapy, which is the world's best technique for removing negative emotion. So I was so excited when I read this book and got, you know, reunited with the Toltec traditions, knowing that it's absolutely applicable to today's day and age. Now, how are we going for time, guys? Okay, very quickly. Now, you've heard me talk about this quote before: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power and our freedom to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. You've heard me talk about that. couple of webinars ago, I talked about this as well. So you will have that stimulus, that trigger, that something that's going to push your buttons, that unknown event, whatever it is. For most of us, that space is almost non-existent, right? And so for most of us, we will react, right? So that stimulus or that event, we will react to that. We will have anger, frustration, sadness, fear, and hopelessness, right? I talked about this concept a few webinars ago. Our job as conscious individuals is to create greater conscious awareness by widening that space. So between the stimulus and the response, inside of that space, you can respond by reflecting. You can respond by choosing a conscious action, an empowered decision, or a conscious choice. So as you kind of, align this with these 4 agreements, for example, don't take anything personally. Remember, you don't need to react, right? They say what they say. And so just to wrap up for today, this word space kind of made up a little acronym for it, which can help us to be more consciously aware in the moment when those triggers are popping up, when that stuff is happening, when our buttons are getting pushed, so that we can learn to better not take things personally. So we can be sure to not make assumptions. So S, the first thing you want to do is just stop, right? When you find yourself reacting or making an assumption or taking things personally or not wanting to do your best, just stop what you're doing right where you're doing, and then pause, right? Give yourself the space, give yourself the emotional permission to stop what you're doing and just pause and take a breath, right? You don't need to react in a nanosecond. You don't. So stop whatever you're doing, pause. Then the A is to create awareness. So be aware of what's going on internally, right? Notice the emotions, notice the blood flowing, notice your face getting red, notice, the tension in your body, notice the emotion that is surging through your, whatever it is, you want to be aware internally, and you want to be aware externally, right? So what's happening in my environment right now? Who am I with? What did they say? What did they do? What triggered me just now, right? So as you stop and pause, you can now almost observe the situation from that kind of detached perspective, yeah? And then so you create that awareness internally and externally. Now you consider your consequences or your choices. In other words, okay, so now you're thinking, now you're not reacting, right? Because you've already stopped, you've already paused, you created the awareness. So now you think to yourself, okay, if I do this are the consequences, or this is the actions, the chain of events that are going to happen. So consequences isn't like negative consequences, it's just like what's going to happen, right? So this decision and this action has these consequences. This decision and this action has these consequences. And so you kind of play that out in your mind, right? You kind of go through this decision-making process of, if I do this, what's going to happen? If I do this, what's going to happen? If I don't do this, what's going to happen? And so you kind of play out those scenarios in your mind, because you've given yourself permission to give yourself that space. And now E is engage, right? So now it's time to stop procrastinating. You need to take action, and you need to move forward. So you're ready to engage in whatever it is that you've decided, right? Because you've had enough awareness, you've considered the different consequences of those different actions. Well, now it's just time to take that action, right? And you know that if you do your best, then you've done your best. And if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, what do? Well, you stop again, you pause, you take a breath, and then you reevaluate. You look at some different consequences, and then you engage differently. Just because you make one bad decision doesn't mean it's bad for the rest of your life. No, you can change course at any time. Does that make sense, guys? And I've got a few chats here. Sorry to ask the point number 2 about don't take anything personally. What to do or say to the person who blame you for things that you didn't do? Okay, thanks, Evie. Great question. So if you didn't do them, then you need to have the courage to speak up, right? Which is to be impeccable with your word. So you can say, well, thank you for sharing your point of view. And I'm afraid that you're mistaken. I did not do that thing that you said that I did. Right. So sometimes you just need to stand up to those kind of bullies that tried to push you around or tried to lie or blame or cheat and things like that. And if it continues, you just need to remove them out of your life. Yeah. The name of the book, or please share the book name in the email. Yeah, the 4 agreements. The 4 agreements is this one. Everything Toltec Wisdom book is this one. And the first one was called Traveling with Power. Ah, thank you, Elizabeth. Yep. Cool. So, yeah, so, you know, start with that, guys. Now, remember, if they're blaming you for something, first step is don't take it personally, right? Because what happens is we take it personally and then we have an emotional reaction like, how dare you? Well, oh, my goodness. Like, oh, if you know you're right, you know that you didn't do anything wrong. So it's just like, well, sorry, that's not true, Bob, or whoever's talking to you. It's simply not true. You don't have to react to it. So you just speak your truth. You be impeccable with your word and you communicate your truth. That would be where I would recommend to start. Awesome, guys. So that's it for today. Come and join me next month for our NLP training, which is modern day Toltec Wisdom. You can join us virtually from anywhere in the world on the 11th to the 15th. Of course, we have a webinar special for you guys and a monthly payment plan. This is one of my favorite workshops to teach. And we have our ICF Leadership Coaching certification as well on 20 and 21 of March. Again, another beautiful offer for you guys. So please do come and join us. We have a monthly payment plan. I'll be emailing the details for you guys on that a little bit later. But just quickly, guys, can you turn your cameras on just as we say goodbye to each other? I'd just like to see these beautiful smiling faces. Thank you to the regulars who come back here. It's been such a thrill to see you all, guys. Hey, Jess. And yeah, thanks for joining us today. I wish you guys a wonderful, wonderful evening. See you at the next time. If you're in Bangkok, come and join us at our training next month. If you're in KL or wherever you are in the world, join us virtually. I would love to see you there. Until next time, guys. Ciao, ciao. Take care and stay awesome. Nah? Bye for now. Thank you.
Bye. Chào.